Good Tuesday, everyone. Welcome to the Volquest.com podcast presented by Blue Water Climate Control. Glad to have you along with us. You can check out Blue Water Climate Control at bluewaterclimatecontrol.com, or you can see them on Twitter at blueh2o_climate. Again, glad to have them a part of the podcast with Austin Price and Jesse Simonton. Rob Lewis, I'm Brent Hubbs. Glad to have you along with us. Austin, Jesse, jump right into it here. It's the day before. Tennessee's got 3 guys on the board. 2 of them are going to do something. We don't think Zach Evans is going to do anything. Where does it stand with D. Beckwith? Where does it stand with Malachi Weidman?
Well, like we talked about in the chat last night, it's the dreadful part of the new way that we do this, the signing period in December. I mean, you're talking about, everybody's like, I need an update. It's 2 kids. I mean, like, it just doesn't change. I mean, like,
it's totally different.
Really Malachi Weidman's not talking at all.
Right.
Ole Miss feels confident. Their boosters feel confident.
They got the last visit. They just cut a wide receiver loose.
Yeah, who'd been a commit.
But Tennessee doesn't feel like that they're out for Malachi Weidman either. I mean, the kid's talking to the schools, but as far as talking to any media person or any of that kind of thing, I mean, it's not happening. So, who really knows? I do think it's that Tennessee is right there. Now they may not get him, but I mean. They've, as I've said, they've done all they can do in that one.
But we don't believe he shut it down and told
one school I don't believe
or the other.
Correct. I don't believe he's told anybody what he's doing. To my knowledge, he did not commit publicly to Ole Miss probably to Ole Miss this weekend. They may feel good about, where they're at, but I don't think that's done. And then, as far as D. Beckwith, I mean. The kid Instagrammed a picture from Knoxville on Sunday.
Should tell you Tennessee feels pretty good about where
but
we'll see.
In the reverse of the dominoes of Ole Miss got the last visit and they dropped a kid and what have you, Tennessee feels good about D. Beckwith with Larry Scott, his lead recruiter. Likely hasn't been announced yet, but going to be the head coach at Howard. The fact that Tennessee, Austin kind of detailed this, the Mailbag podcast, did a really nice job presenting D and his family with kind of, all right, this is how we will use you in Jim Chaney's offense, kind of the Swiss Army knife, tight end, H-back, wide receiver type. And while Florida did get the last visit, I think that, again, add up Cameron Beckwith being a preferred walk-on here and kind of some of the other dominoes that Beckwith's been here several times. I think Tennessee likes their chances there.
And actually, Florida didn't get the last visit because he was up here unofficially.
Yeah.
This past weekend.
Yes.
Yeah, but did not see coaches though.
Right, didn't see, but
yeah, he came back.
I mean,
on his own.
Part of it's come to hang out with guys.
Yeah.
Hang out with people that he knows. I mean, he didn't come up here and walk around by himself on campus, and you know what I mean. I mean, he came and hung out with people that he knows that's going to Tennessee. So, that's kind of where that one is. Beckwith's going to go tomorrow morning.
Yeah, it's supposed to go at 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central. So that's a win for all of us that are watching that one.
It's an early one.
The only time I've heard, and I don't think it's definitive, would be noon for Malachi Weidman, which I mean that's better than 2 or 3 o'clock. But ultimately we wish every kid would go at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Send their papers in at 7:30 in the morning to be done. But so approximately noon there. On that, and that's the only 2 really bear watching. I mean, because
Jakari's going to South Carolina, and that's it. I mean, there's nobody else, and that's why I'm saying, like,
right. But my point is, Jakari's. We don't think there's anything there with Jakari.
No, I don't.
Okay.
Unless something crazy's happened in the last 48 hours. He's headed to South Carolina.
Right. And that one's felt like South Carolina because of all the ties to Carolina for a while.
They got the unofficial visit right before he visited here, then they get the final OV. I mean, I think Tennessee liked Jakari, and if you don't land Weidman and you didn't offer, the lad kid a scholarship, with the way the wide receiver numbers are, I think they absolutely would prefer to have Jakari in the fold, but them's the break sometimes. Yeah. And then now we all wait for 3 months for the Zach Evans saga. So.
And
we'll get to Zach Evans in a minute.
With the Caldwell thing, I mean, Tennessee, they swung best they could swing. I mean, the kid's got ties to South Carolina. His whole family's went to South Carolina.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, that one just was going to be you were going to be trying to climb a hill that you just couldn't climb.
The flip side for Tennessee fans is they're like, well, when's Tennessee going to get the laydowns? Like, when's Tennessee going to get a laydown? That's like somebody else swings, but there's just too much. Tennessee's just entrenched too much that it doesn't matter. Now, they got some of those kids, don't get me wrong. I mean, they had a tie to get them Darnell right. But there's so many of these guys that it seems like Tennessee takes a swing at. If you're a fan of Tennessee and you follow recruiting, so many times it's like Tennessee put their best foot forward, but it wasn't enough to overcome the tie they have to this school or to that school. And Tennessee fans are going, why is it seems like Tennessee can't get – now, McConkey's a guy that Tennessee elected not to recruit or not to offer, which, I think they could have got him as a laydown because of his ties to Tennessee and fandom for Tennessee. But there's not been a ton of those. You know what I'm saying?
Agreed. But the truth is like, this is such a weird state. Tennessee's, for the last decade, not been very good.
Right.
People have been moving in from out of states and stuff, so some of these kids that have been good weren't like naturally tied to this state, and then again, anything west of Nashville, Memphis area. I mean, that's you can be to several other SEC schools in the same amount of time
or faster.
So thus it's just a weird deal to try to get a lay down.
Yeah.
But I mean, hey.
And the funny thing is, I was looking at this yesterday. I just pulled it back up. Tennessee and South Carolina have had some kind of interesting, I wouldn't even call it battles, because it's like one school kind of decided maybe to not go so hard after one prospect, and they ended up in Tennessee's class, or the vice versa. I mean, AP this summer, we talked to Eric Shaw multiple times. He was a guy, but Tennessee is kind of, D. Beckwith has taken that kind of hybrid whatever role for Tennessee. Rico Powers was a wide receiver that came up here multiple times. South Carolina is conversely, they're going to land Zakondre White, the running back, who this staff liked a lot. So it's just kind of funny. These two schools, I feel like the last 3 or 4 years have really gone up against each other, mano a mano, for several guys.
Yeah, they have. It's one of those things you just you get in those little runs. Tennessee goes head to head with Auburn. Tennessee goes head to head with Ole Miss. Tennessee goes head to head with South Carolina or whoever.
On the Ole Miss one, that train's going to start happening a bunch now that Lane's going to really go after Memphis, I think.
Well, and he's going to. I don't even know if it's Memphis as much as it is just. I mean, he's going to recruit on a much broader scale than what the previous staffs have. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be, okay, we're going to try to recruit, Mississippi. We'll try to dive into Memphis a little bit.
He's going to recruit. He's going to recruit nationally.
He's going to recruit nationally.
I mean, he's going to go after the highest ranked kids. He can go after. That's what he's going to do.
Which the irony is that's what Hugh did, and the reason Mullen was able to have success at Mississippi State is because the state itself does produce some good football players.
Yeah.
And so you just load up on in-state kids. So Leach obviously does not. We're on a tangent here, but Leach does not have a reputation as a strong recruiter, but he could actually build some nice classes if Lane's out there trying to pick kids from Nashville, Memphis, Atlanta, California, wherever, and Leach is just like, well, I'll just take all the in-state kids.
Yeah, so that's going to be an interesting dynamic, and we swing into Ole Miss with the Zach Evans story and where that's at. Who wants to dive into that thing first? Because, look, I don't think he's going to do anything. Theoretically, he can sign scholarship papers on Wednesday. And he may, I don't know that he's going to, or financial aid, or not a national letter,
right.
Okay, whatever you want to call him. I don't think that he's going to do that, because I think he's going to continue to go through the process in March, and everything else. But any guess on kind of where that thing is at, or not where he's going, but where his recruitment sits on the eve of signing day?
It'll change 5 minutes from now. I mean, it really does. I mean, I've had enough conversations to where, Ole Miss was in a good spot, then he finds negatives in Ole Miss. Tennessee's been a team that looked good in his eyes, and he finds problems with Tennessee. Same thing with Florida. Same thing with. I mean, he looks for the warts, and I mean everybody's got warts.
Right.
So you eventually,
including himself in the mirror, looking in the mirror.
Yeah. So I mean, eventually you gotta try to, find the school that has the least amount of warts where you feel like you can be competitive. The kid, maybe the kid goes full circle and comes back around to A&M, but I know that he and that family don't want him to go to A&M, and that it was just they just don't feel like that's the right fit for him now.
But the longer this goes, I think the more the home state school is going to stay in this.
Well, yeah, I mean because they're right down the road, and this thing's going to drag on and who knows how long.
Well, here's the question, and I'm not talking about Tennessee specifically, okay? Because, look, high-profile talent, guy could play, everybody needs talent, everybody wants talent, and all those things. As a coach, though, at some point, do you think you just say,
so
it's not worth it?
That's a great question. Josh Ward on his program yesterday asked me this very question, and I said, if hypothetically National Signing Day plays out the way that it could, this is just one avenue, one scenario, but Tennessee lands D. Beckwith and they don't land Malachi, the Vols are going to have a spot to play with where they can either count Velus Jones forward or hold him or count him now. It costs them nothing to keep kicking the can down the road with the Zach Evans deal for now. Can they lose patience come March if Jeremy goes in home and there's still no real grasp of where this kid's actually leaning one way or another, if they don't feel like they have traction? I do find it a little bit peculiar that they didn't even send Jay to Nashville just to visit with him. Tennessee still has some visits to play with. I understand holding the bullet in the chamber for the Pruitt in-home deal. It does seem a bit odd, though, not even just to send an assistant coach when the kid's hanging out in your state. But right now, to your kind of big picture question, I don't think it costs Tennessee anything to continue to kind of kick the tires on Zach Evans and say, it's not like we're going to bump another kid or if we had a guy right now we would want to take. They're going to be in a good, even if they land Malachi, they can still, because of the Velus Jones deal. So I just think that's what they're going to do.
I don't think they're going to punt. I think they'll play the long game here, mostly because the two guys that are the most involved, Brian Niedermeyer and Jay Graham, are just kind of grinders. Those guys understand the long game. They're not going to, they're not just going to get frustrated and go, that's it, done. So Jay's been in that one for a long time. The kid, has reached out to Jay in the last few days, and to me that's a good sign that Jay didn't have to reach out to the kid reached out to him. That shows that there's at least some interest there, and it's not just interest on Tennessee's end to kind of keep this thing going, that the kid's got some interest in at least, continuing to go down that road and giving Tennessee a look.
The thing with the Nashville deal, and I'm not saying Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss did anything wrong, because, it's if they did, they're caught because it's high profile out there. But with the scrutiny that kid's recruitment is under, I wonder if some people are a little bit like,
worry about
how
that.
did he get to Nashville? What does it look like that instead of going to Houston to see him, you're just going 2 hours down the road where there's...
I can guarantee
I wonder if there's a little bit of just, I don't know about that one. A lot of people are going to ask a lot of questions.
That's exactly what this is. You brought it up, so I'll go down that road.
I'm not saying they did anything wrong. I'm just saying
but because the
compliance officers...
To use Jesse's word, the optics of this, as you said, how did he get there, all that. I mean, I saw him going back and forth at Buck yesterday on the board, about stuff. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's just the optics. And so when
you don't think he's doing anything tomorrow, meaning you didn't have to get face-to-face with him in the final 48 hours, then I totally get why you just say, you know what, we'll see you in March.
We'll see you in March. We'll come down there, and who knows? Maybe he comes back up here and they go see him then. Who knows? We'll see where the kid is. Come March. I mean, a lot can change, even though it's a dead month. I mean, a lot can still change in the month.
Now, it is funny that
you
bring up the picture, though. Does some school just say, enough is enough? That seems to have happened with some schools previously, that you do wonder at some point. I mean, Evans is kind of losing his options here.
Well, but
which is why I do think he kind of wants to take an official visit to either Oregon or Florida, because I do think he kind of wants to, expand his horizon. I mean, AP's brought up, Ohio State, no. Some of these other schools, no. We know that, he's been involved with A&M, LSU, and Georgia at one point or another. Alabama said no. So I do think that there's a little bit of, even from his own viewpoint, hey, maybe I should, which is why I think he's circled back to Florida.
Well, and I think, I think you got a young man here too, and I don't know him, okay, I'll be the first to admit it, probably looking for perfection, probably looking for something that doesn't completely exist, like the place that has no warts. Some kids fall in love with the shiny object. he's going 180-degree opposite to make sure he doesn't fall in love with a shiny object, and he's finding all the things that are red flags for him, things he's not comfortable with, which means he's probably seeking something that probably doesn't really exist in terms of a perfect place. Which the question then becomes, at some point in time, somebody has to sit down with him. He has to sit down, and they have to say, look, if you're going to play college football, you got to make a choice. You're going to have to do something. Quit chasing and looking for the most perfect place out there, because it probably doesn't exist. Not to say that any place that you choose would be a bad place. There's probably some places that are better for you than other places. But the fact of the matter is, you can't find the perfect, absolute,
when you,
best place.
When you just look at the kind of the perceived finalists for Zach, Ole Miss, is a school that has not really won, on a consistent level. Tennessee's obviously got history, but they haven't won enough here lately. Yeah, but they do have what many could perceive to be one of the better offensive lines in the league coming back. Especially with the potential if Cade wins his appeal. Florida State was trying to get in the mix, but they have no offensive line. Florida makes some sense because the way Mullen goes offensively. Oregon, makes some sense because they are a flashy object,
and they're good on the offensive line.
And much like Oklahoma, they're a consistent top 10 team in a bad league. Mm-hmm. So like you may not go play great competition every week, but you're going to be high profile enough to get your name out there.
But they're a long ways from
the house. But they're a long ways away from the house. A&M, that one makes the most sense out of anybody just because, they're an hour down the road, but for whatever reason, to this point, he's punting on the Aggies.
Right, he's not been the most comfortable with them. So anyway, here's the thing about Zach Evans. We're going to be talking about Zach Evans, I think, 6 weeks from now. In a very similar conversation. What we just talked about is probably going to be essentially what we talk about with Zach Evans until he goes to class somewhere.
Yeah, because it's just all shades of grays and vagaries.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
All right, let's talk about 21s a little bit. Do you like what Tennessee got done in the month of January in terms of getting guys on campus before you got into the dead period? How would you evaluate this staff and how they did getting guys on campus?
I thought they did a pretty good job. They did not get Travion on campus, but they didn't have a running back.
Travion
Henderson. They got Cody Brown on campus this past weekend. I'm not talked to the kid. I know Tennessee feels like the visit went really well with Cody. I was surprised having talked to the Dillsworth kid that Tennessee did not make the top 5. Now, that's a current top 5. That all changes. Kids change their, the in and out of the teams. I know he says he's going to focus on those, but, all it takes is, 2 or 3 phone calls being made, and then you get right back in the mix, But, that one I would expect to see Tennessee really swing hard to get back in on because I know they like him. And then, elsewhere, Jesse, Tennessee just did they got basically 80 kids in this past weekend. They did a good job of just getting bodies here the last 3 weeks. When everybody uses these weeks as a junior day, because now that February is dead.
Yeah, I would say not. How do I put? Other than it seems like they need to really go hard after Valu now, if that's the only quarterback they got on campus the last 3 weeks in this 21 class. And we know that he's a guy that Acevet likes. We know that he's a guy that Chaney thought had a really strong throwing session this summer. But if Caleb Williams did not come up here. There doesn't seem to be. They didn't get. We know how much they like Drake May, but Drake May didn't make the drive over. So they're going to have to go. I think they need to go hard, even harder, I should say, than they have after Valu, because the options are dwindling.
Yeah, I think he's clearly their best option in the 21 class who can play. Of a guy that they like.
And that's the thing.
It's not like they dislike him. And I understand. You like maybe you got in your dream world, you got Williams hired, you got in Drake May, but Christian's very realistic, and it's not a guy that you're quote settling big time for. Because you liked him when he camped up here.
Here's the thing too is again, I think we go back to Jeremy's first recruiting class. and the analogy of, he went for Elijah Griffin and Tyson Campbell and
all those five
ITS and all those 5-stars, and then was slow getting on the kid that ended up going to NC State. Now, I don't know what kind of career he's had through the first 2 years. Okay, I've not paid one out of attention. And obviously, Eddie Jackson, they were in on, but still they wanted those other guys more, and he went going to Alabama. It's the old filet. You keep swinging for the filet, and I just feel like Drake May's filet. They want the filet. That's they're going to die on that hill with Drake May, and just why not take the nice sirloin? Don't end up with hamburger.
The funny thing too is that Drake. It's not even like Drake May has always been that filet. This is a staff that loves Stowers, who committed early to A&M. They really like Vandegrift. They thought Caleb Williams it was the bee's knees. So I mean, I agree.
We all watched that kid throw, man. I mean, like, he threw better than Haynes King.
He did.
That day he was here, I agree with that. I mean, I thought he threw.
Ball coming off his hand looked pretty good.
I thought he threw the ball well. I did. I thought, you know what, the guy's got quite.
And he wasn't intimidated by the atmosphere and the fact it was cold that day and rainy.
Drizzly, he didn't mind. Give me the ball, I'll go throw it. I mean, so there. I think the other thing you got to do too, if you're Tennessee, is, and it's a further year, another year down the road. You got to get Ty Simpson on your campus as much as you can get him on your campus. To me, that's got to be priority one. Even though it's a year from now, quarterbacks come off the board early. That guy's got to have a lot of your attention, because that's the one you don't want to lose out on in state. And that's not a slam dunk that he's coming to Tennessee, because Dad's Mississippi State grad. Mike Leach's going to throw it a million times down there. This kid, you're already seeing it start to blow up. The offers are rolling in. I mean, that's one that you're going to have to go recruit really hard, and you better be recruiting him really hard right now.
And you got to make it a purpose to go there. This isn't like, you go to Memphis and, you see like 6 kids. I mean, when you go there, you're going out there in Martin, with a specific purpose to see him and him alone. And there's, it's not, and it's not close enough to campus for him just to run down here, their beck and call. So yeah, I mean, I agree with that.
He's got to feel like he's your major priority, because I think that's an important deal. I'm not saying Tennessee's failing there. I'm just saying you can't wait 4 or 5 months to get deep going into that one. You got to go now, because there's no telling when he may come off the board. I mean, that's a guy who may commit really early in the process. He may not.
Yeah.
But you don't want to be late to that party.
I think some other guys going through the list that we've caught up with the last 3 weeks, getting Miles Campbell, Trinity Bell, William Griffin. Some of those guys are guys that I think this staff both like, and these are prospects that have been to campus at least 3 or 4 times in the last calendar year, even as kind of underclassmen.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did a solid job. I mean, I really do. I think they've done a solid job of getting guys in that they like. Sure, you'd like to have Peyton Page over and some other guys you would like to have had in that you didn't get in. But overall, I think solid job. Now you got to follow that up with having a really good March, of having a bunch of guys here for spring practice and for the orange and white game. And again, you got to get going and make sure that gets locked up, because kids are making decisions now on what spring games they're going to. They're filling out their April calendars right now. Now, it may change, but you want to get a reservation for one of those visits if you can.
Yep.
So,
and they better get Travion on campus, because he did visit other places.
He visited Georgia this past weekend.
Yeah. So that the running back position is going to be who all does Jay like? Who all do they offer? What new guys pop up? In the spring with evaluations. And where are they with Travion and some of these other guys, as well as Jay kind of gets his feet? Because again, he wasn't on the road, after he took the Tennessee job. So what is he like when he goes out into spring evaluations? Who does he get in on campus? So look, slow day on Wednesday, we think. Not a whole lot to happen. Tennessee's hoping for a good day with a couple of signatures. We'll see what happens with Weidman and Beckwith and have full coverage of that. quiet in the month of February, but a lot of phone calls to be made, a lot of movement. There'll still be recruiting news. We'll follow all of that for you as well. Plenty of things to get to when you talk about Tennessee recruiting, and then obviously getting ready for spring practice as well. Let me tell you about Blue Water Climate Control. We're proud to have them a part of the Volquest.com podcast. And did you realize that a heater over 5 years old should be checked every year to make sure all the safety controls are working properly and to make sure there isn't a dangerous carbon monoxide leak? Blue Water Climate Control's precision tune-ups takes care of that and much more. They can keep your house more comfortable, lower your operating costs, prevent daily or costly repairs. In fact, if your heater breaks after their tune-up before the end of March, you'll get a 30% repair discount. So call Blue Water Climate Control at 865-299-2290. That's 865-299-2290. Or you can see them online at bluewaterclimatecontrol.com. Follow them on Twitter at BlueH2O_climate. BlueH2O_climate. You can find them on Twitter as well. And as warm as it is right now, trust me, Rob Lewis, it's going to get cold again, right?
Maybe. Who knows?
It's going to get cold
Who
again.
knows?
It's coming. I promise you. We're going to be out here in March, and I'm going to be in a toboggan, and I'm going to be in 2 pairs of socks and gloves covering spring football.
That could be the case on a 50-degree afternoon.
It might be. All right. Speaking of cold, that may be the best way to describe this Tennessee basketball
what a
team
segue.
right now.
What a segue.
I mean, you got Kansas. You play that game, you think maybe they've turned the corner. Maybe if you play like that, you got a chance. Then they've come back after that Kansas game, laid an absolute egg at home against Texas A&M, and went and took on a talented Mississippi State team that just buried them in the second half.
Yeah, you said, you leave that game at Kansas, you're thinking, wow, maybe they might be a scrappy bunch of overachievers that get something done, and then they come back and play as bad of a game as I can remember Tennessee playing against Texas A&M, and I think Mississippi State. I think that first half was kind of fool's gold. I think that was more about Mississippi State than it was Tennessee, and then I think you saw that in the second half. 3-game losing streak. I had to go back and look. I think that might have happened Rick's first year. I don't know that it's happened since then, and right now, I don't see anything. I don't think they finished 500 in SEC play.
All right, let me ask you this specifically about the Mississippi State game. What's more surprising to you, that Vescovi and Euros, who's basically been on this team eligible to play since the 1st of January, so a little over a month, 5 weeks at most, that they're your leading scorers on the road in the SEC against Mississippi State, or that Mississippi State shot 69% from the floor in the second half?
I think it's probably more surprising about the 2 young kids, the 2 freshmen. There's not a lot to be positive about coming out of that game. You have to feel pretty good about Plavsic going and scoring 16 points against, in my opinion, what might be the best front line in the SEC. Kentucky's got Richards and Montgomery, who are definitely long and big and athletic, but Perry and Addo are pretty stout. And for Euros to go and do that in his first start, playing since Josiah was hurt, I was really impressed. And Santiago, that was a tough environment, and those are also that's a veteran backcourt, tough older guards that he played well against. He had the 3 turnovers, but I think he's gotten on top of that a little bit. It's not 7, 6, 7, 8, and he also had 5 assists, shot the ball well, and just mentally just wasn't rattled. He could handle it. I'm very impressed by what he's done. I've written about it and talked about it, but I just don't think you can say enough about that kid getting dropped in here on December 28th and being a quality player in the SEC like he has been.
Yeah, he's certainly physically mature and mentally mature as well.
The mental toughness.
Physically, he'll get better, but the mental toughness is something that's pretty impressive. I got to ask you this. How does Euros go for 16 at Mississippi State and is a non-factor at home against Texas A&M?
I think Rick Barnes does a great job. You got to question Rick Barnes. He played him less than, I want to say, 4 minutes?
Yeah, it was a non-factor.
He played him less than 10 minutes.
He essentially didn't play.
Essentially didn't play against Texas A&M, a game where you gave up 23 offensive rebounds and you got a 7-1 kid sitting on the bench in mothballs. I mean, what do you? Again, Rick Barnes won a lot more college basketball games than I have, but that's one where I think in hindsight, and does he make a difference? I don't know, but he sure did hurt. You know, when you can't, you know, when they're playing volleyball on their offensive backboard, just tapping it to themselves. I don't know how you don't give them more of a shot that night. And I've said this on the board. And a lot of people agree. Right now, with where this team is, I just don't see why you don't play the freshmen. Play them more. I mean, Rick got furious at Olivier Camois in Starkville the other day because of a defensive breakdown. But I mean, the kid's not going to get any better when you play him 2 minutes a game. You know, I mean, he did play Devontae and Drew more, both 7, 8, 9 minutes, but it's just not. I mean, this team isn't going to the tournament, in my opinion. I mean, I think after this next week, that'll be apparent to everybody. I mean, get better. Start thinking about next year.
So, let's a couple other things to break down here. What's the story on Josiah James?
Yeah, we just talked to Rick. We're recording this on Monday. Rick just had his press conference Monday afternoon, and Rick mentioned last Thursday that, you know, if everybody saw Josiah was wearing, you know, some of that magnetic tape on his knee when they played Texas A&M. Rick said he tweaked the knee at Kansas, but then didn't act like it was, you know, any kind of a big concern. And then they go out for a walkthrough on Saturday at Mississippi State, and, you know, Josiah decides he can't go. So Rick said it was day to day. It doesn't seem like it's a big deal. But he also seemed far less than certain that he was going to play Tuesday night at Alabama.
So it is a knee.
It's a knee. Tweaked it, and Rick said he tweaked it at Kansas, played through it at Texas A&M. So I mean, the injury, you know, didn't. I don't think he made it any worse, but it was the same. Again, he didn't play on Saturday, and he played on Tuesday, and it's basically the same deal.
All right, so this thing going to get a lot harder when you look at.
My God.
I mean, when you look at the schedule coming up for this Tennessee team. I mean, it's
2
not,
against Auburn, 2 against Kentucky.
Yeah, I mean, it's not pretty. Okay, and everybody knew that you had to make. You know, this team was going to have to make hay early on if they're going to.
They didn't need to be 4-4 right now.
No, so they go to Alabama tonight to take on the Crimson Tide, and then you've got Kentucky, Arkansas, both at home, and Arkansas. I mean, they're pretty good. I mean, that's not a bad Arkansas team. At South Carolina, then Vanderbilt, at Auburn, at Arkansas, Florida, Kentucky, and Auburn to finish.
And I think they got one. They'll beat Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt
After
home.
that,
Yeah. I mean,
I don't think they're going to lose 9.
right, but I mean,
but there's
they
none
can lose at South Carolina, no question.
Sure.
You know, I mean, none of them are locked in for wins
No.
or anything like that. So, how does Rick Barnes and this staff manage? You mentioned playing the freshmen. How do you hold the rope together here and continue to get better when you're going to be in an area where you know? Listen, I mean, Jordan Bound's not been in a world where you're going to lose potentially a handful of games down the stretch, and the tournament's not. Yeah, he was there as a freshman, but I'm talking about the what's expectations, Chris. How does Rick Barnes manage this team?
I think it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, me and you were talking off air. I mean, I've spoken with Rick, and he's not just, you know, he's just not blowing up at his kids right now. I mean, I think he kind of gets where they are. I don't by no means am I saying he's okay with losing, but I don't think he feels like his team's underachieving. You know, I mean, I think he feels like the effort's there. He likes the mindset, the way they're working. And even, I mean, he'll never come out and say this, but if you're a coach, I mean, you kind of got to feel like you're sort of building towards next year a little bit. You know, you don't want to, you know, for Jordan Bowden's sake, you don't want to say this, you know, the rest of this season doesn't matter. You got one senior on your team. Everybody except for Jordan's going to be back. I think you start to get to the point where you let the freshmen take some lumps. You try to give them a little bit of longer leash. And, again, we just looked at that schedule. 10 games. I mean, there is one win on there. That's Vanderbilt. I mean, I don't think they're going to go 1-9, but
Right.
But still, I mean, it could get ugly. It could get really ugly.
All right, you mentioned everybody coming back, and obviously, you know, Bowden's gone, and you know, Pons has the big game, and then just kind of was okay against a good front line. So, like, who knows where, you know, for all the talk of his stock roaring a week ago.
I don't think he's going to go to the NBA.
No, I don't think right now.
I mean, if anything happens with him, I think it would be
right.
a European team, you know, somebody from the EuroLeague.
Right, but I mean, I think everybody expects everybody back.
Sure.
I look at this roster coming back. I look at what's coming in. Tell me how they're going to be better in the paint next year than they are right now.
I think Eurosha's going to be a lot better. And Corey Walker.
Can he be quick enough? Can Euros be quick enough?
He's going to be better. And Corey Walker Jr. can score. He can score. I mean, he's not going to be Grant Williams as a freshman, but he's that kind of player.
15-foot in type scorer?
Yes, yeah.
That type of guy?
And he can step out. I mean, he's not a wing guy. I mean, Corey's a play in the paint, back to the basket, work the baseline, kind of small 3/4 small forward, power forward guy. I mean, he can step out and hit open 3-pointers, but he's not a handle the ball, drive it 6-7 guy. He's like, again, he's not Grant Williams right now, but his
game's more like that than Admiral.
Yes.
Where Admiral would take
totally,
it to the rim.
100%.
Not that kind of player.
Not that kind of guy. He's a low block, work it, take a couple dribbles, make a move. Very polished on the block, and 12, 15-foot jump shot, really good. And again, he can hit an open 3-pointer, but he's not floating around the perimeter. I think with him there, I think that's going to give. I mean, and again, I'm not saying he's going to be option number one. He's going to be an option like Tennessee doesn't necessarily have right now. I mean, Volquest is good some nights, but I think what you saw against Mississippi State's like Volquest's kryptonite. When you got two big, strong athletic dudes like Addo and Nick Perry, it's going to be tough for Volquest. I mean, that's just the way it is.
I think the way he plays, I think he's got almost a pitch count. I mean, I think he's a 26, 27-minute guy. I just don't think, because of his style of play, I don't think he's ever going to be able to play effectively, play a 32, 34
I agree,
minutes.
and I think his head coach, feels the same way. So, but I think, when you've got Volquest, it'll be a senior. I think Euro should be a lot better, and you throw Corey Walker into the mix. I think you're going to be a lot better down low, and you're going to be so much better on the perimeter.
In terms of scoring the ball.
Yeah, and what you're going to have in Keon Johnson and Jaden Springer next year it's light years different than what you're looking at right now.
But some of these guys who are here now, these freshmen have to come on. Pons has to continue to develop. You can't.
Definitely.
The idea can't just be, hey, Corey Walker, Springer, and Keon Johnson are saving the day.
And Vescovi, I think, is going to be great. I mean, Springer and Keon Johnson are going to make things so much easier for Vescovi. I mean, those three are going to be great together. They're going to, because and I've said this before, Jaden could play point guard for you. He can handle it well enough. He's a good passer, but he's an assassin scorer. I mean, that's what he does. He scores the basketball. So if you can take the playmaking ability or responsibility away from him and give it to somebody else like Vescovi, that makes him and I think your team a lot better.
That's a long ways away from now. For right now, this basketball team's got plenty to do. Tough week.
Bama just lost at home. They're going to be nasty.
Yeah, tough month coming up for a basketball team in a conference that's still not very good, but you're getting ready to play the best teams.
Doesn't have a top
here.
10 team in it.
When you talk about Kentucky and Auburn, you get those guys 3 times combined.
In Florida, Florida's going to, the way they're playing, Tennessee plays them next to last weekend of the season. I think they're going to need. I mean, they're going to be playing for a postseason resume.
Well, I think Arkansas is still going to have plenty to play for in there as well.
Sure.
So, will be an interesting month for Tennessee. Certainly an interesting week starting tonight with the Vols in Alabama and Tuscaloosa. We'll have full coverage of that as well. That's going to do it for this edition of the Volquest.com podcast, brought to you by Blue Water Climate Control. Remember, you can check them out at bluewaterclimatecontrol.com. Or you can check them out on Twitter at BlueH2O_climate. BlueH2O_climate. For Jesse Simonton, Austin Price, and Rob Lewis, I'm Brent Hubbs. Thanks for joining us on this Tuesday. Have a great day, everybody.